You're listening to The Philosopher's Note on Paulo Coelho. More wisdom in less time.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome to The Philosopher's Note on Paulo Coelho. A look at some of my favorite big ideas. So this note's going to be a compilation of a bunch of different titles from Paulo, and I trust you'll love it. We'll start with a quote. A philosophy of life. I'm an adventurer looking for treasure. That's Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist, a fable about following your dream. So Paulo Coelho is one of my favorite human beings on the planet. I like to say I know a great book when I finish it and say, the person who wrote that is a really good person. And that's how I feel when I read Coelho's stuff, and I'm obviously not alone, as his books have sold more than 100 million copies. 100 million, think about that, that's a lot of books. In 150 different countries, and they've been translated into 60 different languages, easily making him not only one of the coolest guys on the planet, but one of the most read and most influential. If you haven't read any of his stuff yet, I'd suggest you start with the magical fable, The Alchemist, where we meet a shepherd in pursuit of his dreams who discovers that when someone truly wants something, the universe conspires to help him get it. And some of my other favorites include Veronica Decides to Die, which is now a movie starring Sarah Michelle Gellar. You can YouTube the trailer on that, Veronica Decides to Die. And Warrior of the Light is another favorite of mine, and Like the Flowing River. Thoughts and reflections from Paulo's weekly syndicated newspaper column are in that last one, Like the Flowing River. I'm pretty sure I've read all of his published books, and I'm excited to share some of my favorite big ideas from a bunch of those books. So let's jump in. We'll start with the first big idea, one great truth. Quote, there is one great truth on this planet. Whoever you are, or whatever it is that you do, when you really want something, it's because that desire originated in the soul of the universe. It's your mission on Earth. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. End quote. That's from The Alchemist. Again, a fable about following your dream. So this is the essence of The Alchemist, and a theme that runs through all of Coelho's work. If you have a deep-felt desire, something you truly want, it's the universe begging to express itself through you. And to be clear, we're not talking about something you want because you think it'll impress people, or you've been told you should have it, etc. We're talking about something that moves you and stirs your soul. When you've got that flowing through you, relax, know that it's something much bigger than you that's itching for expression. And know that you wouldn't have that desire in the first place if you also didn't have the mojo to bring it to life. Emerson and Goethe say the same thing. Emerson says, quote, there's nothing capricious in nature, and the implanting of a desire indicates that its gratification is in the constitution of the creature that feels it. End quote. Translation, nature doesn't play around. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. Goethe, the great German philosopher, says, quote, desire is the presentiment of our inner abilities and the forerunner of our ultimate accomplishments. End quote. So, what do you really want? And what are you waiting for? The next big idea is the fear of suffering. Quote, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. End quote. That's The Alchemist speaking to the young shepherd Santiago in The Alchemist. So, are you afraid of something? Tell your heart that, quote, the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, end quote. And know that the fear of suffering is way worse than any potential challenges you may face. As Montaigne says, quote, my life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened, End quote. This also reminds me of Russell Simmons's wisdom from his great book, Do You? You can see the notes on that one as well. He says, quote, "The pain that's created by avoiding hard work is actually much worse than any pain created from the actual work itself. Because if you don't begin to work on those ideas that God has blessed you with, they will become stagnant inside of you and eventually begin to eat away at you. You might seem okay on the outside, but inside you will be ill from not getting those ideas out of your heart and into the world. Stalling leads to sickness, but taking steps, even baby steps, always leads to success." End quote. The next big idea is, what makes a dream impossible to achieve? This is another quote from The Alchemist. "There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure." End quote. Well, that makes it pretty simple, huh? Are you afraid of failure? Know that it's the only thing standing in your way. So I clear my throat and say, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Get on that. The next big idea is the extraordinary. It's your birthright. This is from Paulo Coelho, Confessions of a Pilgrim. Quote, "I learned the most important lesson of my life, that the extraordinary is not the birthright of a chosen and privileged few, but of all people, even the humblest. That is my one certainty. We are all the manifestation of the divinity of God." End quote. So it's so easy to look at those people we admire and think it was their destiny to experience the extraordinary. Coelho's constant reminder throughout his beautiful books is to look within and know that we all have the extraordinary within us. The key to bringing it to life? Having the courage to follow the dreams of our heart. This idea also reminds me of one of my favorite thoughts from Walt Whitman, who says, quote, "In the faces of men and women, I see God." So what do you see when you look in the faces of others? Starting with that beautiful face in the mirror. Try making it a game, seeing the amazing potential and genius and divinity within all those faces you see today. Really fun. And remember, the extraordinary. It's your birthright and everyone's opportunity and birthright. So the next big idea is warrior of the light. Quote, "Every warrior of the light has felt afraid of going into battle. Every warrior of the light has, at some time in the past, lied or betrayed someone. Every warrior of the light has trodden a path that was not his. Every warrior of the light has suffered for the most trivial of reasons. Every warrior of the light has, at least once, believed he was not a warrior of the light. Every warrior of the light has failed in his spiritual duties. Every warrior of the light has said yes when he wanted to say no. Every warrior of the light has hurt someone he loved. That is why he is a warrior of the light, because he has been through all this and yet has never lost hope of being better than he is." End quote. That's from Warrior of the Light. Awesome book. It serves as a companion guide to Coelho's enormously popular Alchemist, and it definitely lives up to its advertisement that, quote, "Every short passage invites us to live out our dreams, to embrace the uncertainty of life, and to rise to our own unique destiny." So, super cool book, Warrior of the Light, a manual. Really brief phrases or stories and passages like what I just read to you. Super powerful. So here's to the warrior of the light within each of us. And if you're digging it, go Amazon it. All right, the next big idea is if you're going to fall. Quote, "A fall from the 3rd floor hurts as much as a fall from the 100th. If I have to fall, may it be from a high place." End quote. That's from By the River Piedra, I Sat Down and Wept. So why be afraid of heights? If you're going to fall, might as well be from a high place, huh? So get out there and climb. All right, the next big idea is bear your scars like medals. Quote, I don't regret the painful times. I bear my scars as if they were medals. End quote. That's from a book called The Zahir. I love that. What do you do with your painful times? Do you bear your scars like they're medals? Gives me a big smile and makes me think of Joseph Campbell, who says, quote, Nietzsche was the one who did the job for me. At a certain moment in his life, the idea came to him of what he called the love of your fate. Whatever your fate is, whatever the hell happens, you say, this is what I need. It may look like a wreck, but go at it as though it were an opportunity, a challenge. If you bring love to that moment, not discouragement, you will find the strength is there. Any disaster that you can survive is an improvement in your character, your stature in your life. What a privilege. This is when the spontaneity of your own nature will have a chance to flow. Then, when looking back at your life, you will see that the moments which seem to be great failures followed by wreckage were the incidents that shaped the life you have now. You'll see that this is really true. Nothing can happen to you that is not positive. Even though it looks and feels at the moment like a negative crisis, it is not. The crisis throws you back, and when you are required to exhibit strength, it comes. End quote. That's powerful. Nietzsche's idea of amor fati. We talk about that in Campbell's, both of the notes on Joseph Campbell that you can check out, Power of Myth and a Joseph Campbell Companion. Both are awesome. Tony Robbins says something along the lines of, 5 years from now, you're going to laugh at whatever's stressing you out now. So why wait? I love that. Bear your scars like medals. What's stressing you out? What scars do you try to hide? Let's change our perspective and bear them like medals. Starting now, perhaps? Good. All right, the next big idea is statutes for the new millennium. Quote, only the following items should be considered to be grave faults: not respecting others' rights, allowing oneself to be paralyzed by fear, feeling guilty, believing that one does not deserve the good or ill that happens in one's life, being a coward. End quote. That's from Like the Flowing River, Statutes for the New Millennium. It's part of the 12th statute from his 15 statutes for the new millennium. And again, it's from his collection of mini essays in his great little book, Like the Flowing River. So how are you doing with those? Now, I assume we're all respecting the rights of others, but what about the other grave faults? Starting with allowing oneself to be paralyzed by fear. Eek. Being paralyzed by fear is a grave fault. I love that. So how are you doing with your fears? How about this gem from Rollo May's brilliant book, The Courage to Create? He says, quote, what is courage? This courage will not be the opposite of despair. We shall often be faced with despair, as indeed every sensitive person has been during the last several decades in this country. Hence Kierkegaard and Nietzsche and Camus and Sartre have proclaimed that courage is not the absence of despair. It is rather the capacity to move ahead in spite of despair. End quote. So it's not about never having fear, despair, etc. It's about never being paralyzed by the fear. So what are you afraid of right now? And what do you think about just taking the next step forward? All right, the next grave fault, feeling guilty. Isn't that a fun one? One of the practices I have right now as part of my rewiring routine is to notice and remove all the little things I do, like criticizing myself and others, blaming, complaining, gossiping, and feeling guilt or shame. Guilt is a big one. Start noticing when it crops up and politely thank it for its presence, and then let it know that you've forgiven yourself and have moved on. And you might want to try a mantra I got from Louise Hay. She says, I love and accept myself completely. I love and accept myself completely. Now, we've all done things we're not proud of. No need to exacerbate the problem by feeling bad about it. Let's just recognize the misstep and aim to improve ourselves in the next moment and go back to the adventure of being fully alive. So guilt, get rid of that grave fault. Don't feel guilty about it if you haven't done it yet. Just move on to the next thing. So the next one is believing that one does not deserve the good or ill that happens in one's life. That would qualify you as a victim or someone who puts control outside yourself. Don't want to do that. Paulo and psychologists will both tell us that we want to have an internal locus of control, such that we don't blame other people or circumstances for our successes or failures. So if you find yourself complaining about a bad economy or bad childhood or bad boss or teacher or whatever, know you're at risk of creating a grave fault and take your power back, pretty please. And the final grave fault is being a coward. I think we can say that's closely tied to allowing ourselves to be paralyzed by fear, huh? All right, those are the grave faults in his statutes for the new millennium. The next big idea is life is like a great bicycle race. Quote, life is like a great bicycle race whose aim is to fulfill our personal legend, which, according to the ancient alchemists, is our true mission on earth. As we pedal to our goal, we must make a point of asking ourselves, what is beautiful about today? That's another one from Like the Flowing River. It's called Alone on the Road. So we're pedaling away on the great bicycle race of following our bliss that is our life. Sweet. And let's just be clear. First, you are on that race, right? Or are you watching it on TV? Get on your bike and fulfill your personal legend, please. And as we pedal away, let's remember to stop and ask ourselves, quote, what is beautiful about today? And as I wrote that, a little Balinese lizard cruised by, literally right when I wrote the question, typed it into my computer. I just love it when the universe answers questions immediately. So how about you? What is beautiful about today? And how about some journal time on that one? Now is always a good time to answer a question like that, huh? So listening to this, either press pause, go bust out your journal, or if you're running, walking, driving to work, whatever, maybe just press pause and think about it. These things are beautiful today. What things can you really appreciate the beauty of? Go ahead and ponder that. We will wait. All right, how'd that go? I assume it went great, and you are soaking up the beauty on this beautiful bicycle ride that is your life. So the next big idea is the art of trying. Quote, as long as it doesn't harm anyone, change your opinions now and then and be unashamedly contradictory. End quote. That's another one from Like the Flowing River. And it's part of a great essay on the power of getting out of our routines and ruts. Reminds me of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said that foolish consistency is the hobgoblin, I just love that word, hobgoblin, of small minds. Oh, what the heck? I'm going to share the full passage because it's just so awesome. And it's something I refer to anytime I find myself contradicting myself. And just so you know, this is from a brilliant essay by Emerson called Self-Reliance, which you can get for free, the PDF and an MP3 recording of me reading the Self-Reliance in the members section. Just cruise down to the members section, the very bottom of the titles page. You'll see a few free ebooks. So Emerson says, quote, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with his shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. Ah, so you shall be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad, then, to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates and Jesus and Luther and Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. End quote. That's genius. So know that if you can't change your opinion, you might as well just stare at your shadow on the wall. Speak what you think today with conviction, and speak what you think tomorrow with conviction, even if it contradicts everything you said today. And if peeps give you trouble, just smile and refer them to Coelho and Emerson and Whitman. How about Walt Whitman, who says, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am vast. I have multitudes." I love that. Next big idea is 90% there equals halfway there. Quote, "To avoid falling into treacherous traps, it is best to consider that you have covered half your journey only when you have walked 90% of the road." That's another one from Like the Flowing River. Gives me a big smile as well. So are you 90% to your destination? Sweet. To avoid falling into treacherous traps, consider yourself halfway there. Why? Well, one of the reasons you want to consider doing that is because when we think that we're almost there, we tend to let up a little and get a little feistier than normal if something derails us, because now we're attached to arriving at a specific time. If we think we're only halfway there, we're much more likely to address a little blip in the road as part of the process, and then go back to enjoying the whole thing as we blissfully take one step after another, after another, after da-da-da-da-da-da. So this idea also reminds me of George Leonard's brilliant wisdom from his great book, Mastery. You can see the notes on that. It's one of my favorite ones, actually. Leonard, by the way, is one of the world's leading authorities on Aikido, which is an art he started practicing at age 40-something. And now he's one of the world's experts. He's approaching 90 as I record this. So Leonard talks about the practices of a master. And he says, quote, "For a master, the rewards gained along the way are fine, but they are not the main reason for the journey. Ultimately, the master and the master's path are one. And if the traveler is fortunate, that is, if the path is complex and profound enough, the destination is 2 miles farther away for every mile he or she travels." End quote. Imagine that, to love our journey so much that for every mile we travel, we hope our destination is 2 miles further away. That's incredibly cool. So again, next time you find yourself 90% there, assume you're halfway there. Avoid the treacherous traps. And here's the final big idea: run God's risks. This is from Veronica Decides to Die. Coelho says, quote, "Live. If you live, God will live with you. If you refuse to run his risks, he'll retreat to that distant heaven and be merely a subject for philosophical speculation." Everyone knows this, but no one takes the first step, perhaps for fear of being called insane. End quote. So I say it's time to get out of philosophical speculation and take the first step. Yeah? Let's live. Let's run God's risks. And that wraps up the big ideas from my note on Paulo Coelho. I'm going to share some notes I think you'll like if you liked this one, a little blurb on Paulo, and then also just a bunch of quotes from different books I think you'll enjoy. So Paulo Coelho, quote, "The Brazilian author Paulo Coelho was born in 1947 in the city of Rio de Janeiro. Before dedicating his life completely to literature, he worked as theater director and actor, lyricist, and journalist. He is one of the best-selling and most influential authors in the world. The Alchemist, The Pilgrimage, The Valkyries, By the River Piedra, I Sat Down and Wept, The Fifth Mountain, Veronica Decides to Die, 11 Minutes, The Zahir, and others have sold more than 100 million copies in 150 countries and have been translated into 60 languages. That's from his website, where you can visit him, paulocoelho.com, paulocoelho.com. Unbelievably cool guy. I really hope you get into his stuff. And if you like this note, I think you'll also like the Philosopher's Notes on A Joseph Campbell Companion, The Power of Myth, Love by Leo Buscaglia, The Courage to Create by Rollo May, and The Magic of Thinking Big. So let's go jump into some of my favorite quotes. These are from Veronica Decides to Die. Quote, "The danger of an adventure is worth 1,000 days of ease and comfort. When everyone dreams but only a few realize their dreams, that makes cowards of us all. If only everyone could know and live with their inner craziness, people would be fairer and happier. A miracle happened, another day of life. An awareness of death encourages us to live more intensely. Be like the fountain that overflows, not like the cistern that merely contains. You're someone who's different, but who wants to be the same as everyone else. And that, in my view, is a serious illness. I don't know what to do. I only know that it's taken me years to understand that life was pushing me in a direction I didn't want to go in. In all the woods and forests, God did not create a single leaf the same as any other. People go against nature because they lack the courage to be different." Again, those are all from Veronica Decides to Die. Great novel. The next ones are from Warrior of the Light. He tries to show each person how much they are capable of achieving. He chooses the path along which he is walking, and so has no complaints. The warrior of the light has a destiny to fulfill. Warriors of the light are not perfect. Their beauty lies in accepting this fact and still desiring to grow and to learn. In these words lies all his power. He chose the path along which he is walking, and so has no complaints. On some nights he has nowhere to sleep. On others he suffers from insomnia. That's just how it is, thinks the warrior. I was the one who chose to walk this path. Then, accepting the help of God and of God's signs, he allows his personal legend to guide him toward the tasks that life has reserved for him. Each stone, each bend cries welcome to him. He identifies with the mountains and the streams. He sees something of his own soul in the plants and the animals and the birds of the field. And these are just some random quotes. I don't have the source, but they're all from Paulo. Join with those who sing songs, tell stories, enjoy life, because happiness is contagious. Join those who walk with their heads high, even when they have tears in their eyes. Avoid those who have never shed a tear. We wouldn't worry nearly as much what others thought of us if we recognize how seldom they do. Freedom is not the absence of commitments, but the ability to choose and commit myself to what is best for me. And finally, we all have the ability. We just don't all have the courage to follow our dreams and to follow the signs. So there you go. That is a quick look at Paulo Coelho and some of my favorite passages from some of my favorite books. If you haven't gotten into his work yet, I really recommend you do. And really enjoyed sharing this with you, as always. Trust you're doing great and excited to share more with you soon. Have an awesome day. See ya.
We hope you enjoyed this Philosopher's Note. Please go to www.philosophersnotes.com to download more.